we got back to Singleton, and we stayed there for a few more days, and then took a truck down to the very southern tip of England, and that's when we first met our LCI. And there were two that were of interest to us, LCI 88 and LCI 85. Both of them were damaged, but we were aboard a day. It was supposed to be, the invasion was supposed to be one day earlier, as you know, and we were aboard for that. But then after they postponed it because of weather, we had to stay down in the hold, and that was a pretty miserable thing because it wasn't meant for that. It was just supposed to be for transport across and not spending any time there. So that was a little difficult, but everything was, put up with anything. And the ship, LCI was a stable ship, so there wasn't very many guys that got seasick or anything like that. It's just even in the rough weather. It was very interesting when we got in before we went ashore. We're heading in and we're watching the rocket. There were LCMs, I believe, that they had refitted for rockets. Most spectacular show I ever saw in my life because they were fairly close to us, and those things going off, it was just amazing. And of course, we're sitting there thinking that, man, they're going to tear everything up on that beach. Won't be anything left. They'd already told us that the Air Force was going to have all these gun emplacements bombed out. Well, the weather was such that the Air Force flew right over them. They didn't want to take a chance on a short fall and hitting our people, so they went, unfortunately, too far back and didn't do us much good.
Wow.
Those things, they were so well built that it would take a pretty good pounding to get them down. Almost all of them had to be taken individually by 1st Division, Big Red. Anyway, and that was an interesting entry into the landing. So once again, we thought that the bombardments by the battleships and there was a lot of firepower going in, but I don't think that they recognized just how strongly built, how sturdy these gun emplacements were.
I've actually been in a few of them, and that was unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's been a lot here. Most of it's underground.
Prior to the invasion, none of our people had been in them, so we didn't know that in time. But that was again one of the things that we were thinking that was just going to be cleaned out by the time they got in there. And of course, nothing. They just waited until the shelling stopped and came out and got behind their guns. And remember, this was very dark when we got there. You could see where shells were landing, and you could, when they would explode, you could see the contour, the outline, but you couldn't see much of the shore until just about the time we were starting to head into that. And by that time, then you could see it pretty well. But the trading was good. The objectives were pretty obvious. For us as a communications team, our object was to keep in touch with the larger ships out there, the command ships and so on. And part of our unit was supposed to repair any boats that were hit so that they could get them back off the beach, or to blow them up if they were in the way. We had no idea that they were going to have the number of obstacles that they had out there for the landing craft. They had all different kinds, and so many of the small craft hit some of these and just flipped over. They weren't even hit, but they flipped over and they were useless. And a lot of guys drowned in that. One of the things that they ran into that they hadn't researched, and that's strange because they did a lot of good. They had frogmen in there long before, and did a lot of measurements and checked and the type of sand and so on. But they have little runnels in the water, under the water, so you couldn't see them, but just like little sand dunes. And when the ships came in, they would hit that. They drop the ramp. They think they're in. They drop the ramp, and the guys would walk off, and they take 2 steps, and it'd be over their head.
Wow.
There were a terrible amount of guys that just drowned. That, of course, you've got all this equipment.
How do you wait?
And you've got, in addition to that, we had battery-powered signal lights, and I'm sure that the equipment weighed far more than I did. But and we ran into that same thing. Our LCOA went in. It either it hit a mine or it was hit on the starboard ramp. We were supposed to go down on the starboard ramp, and it either hit a mine or an 88 hit that right side. And at that time, I was just climbing up the ladder from down in the hold, and turned out that when it hit, I fell down on top of the other guys below me. Didn't hurt me any, but I'm sure it didn't do them any good. But I'm thinking maybe this isn't such a good idea. I might just be better off to lay down here, and rest through the rest of the war. But then I realized they're going to be shooting at that ship as much as they could. So anyway, we got up out of there, and we all got out of the thing and had to go down the port ramp. And the same thing I had talked about before. When we got to the bottom of the ramp was on sand. So when you took one step out, you're in water over your head. In about 60 seconds, all of the excess gear was gone. All the lights, all the batteries, all of the power equipment, everything is gone because you couldn't hold that and stay above water. So with that gone, we then tried to swim and any way that we could get forward, because we knew that at least it was going to be shallow sooner or later. And you'd hit another little sandbar and it'd get a little rest, but they were still shooting at us. And it was an intriguing thing to watch as you're going toward the shore, and you can see the guns that are firing at you. And then when they would run the machine guns, and you'd see all these little pops right in front of you in the water, and you're thinking, what did I learn in the class in physics? Where does the shell go when it comes in at an angle? Is that going to go down, or is that you assume that sooner or later you're going to get hit by one of those things? But most of our guys, I think, were hit by fragments of shells rather than by bullets, as you would think somebody shooting a rifle or a machine gun. After the skipper dropped us off, he saw that it was too deep, and it wasn't where we were supposed to be anyway. The currents and the wind were moving all of the ships eastward, and we were supposed to go in on Easy Red, and we came in on the line of Easy Red and Fox Green. Then he saw what was happening, and he backed that thing up and brought it in somewhere else. And there's a half dozen of us or so that are already in the water, and there goes our ship. We have no buddies with us and no ship to get back on. So we only had one way to go, and that was inland.